So again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm excited to moderate the first episode of Beyond the Whistle, highlighting women leading the way. And throughout the series, we're going to have guest speakers from our Mount community come on to talk about their experiences with women in sports and to highlight some of their successes they've had. And we really want to help keep the dialogue going and connect our women in the Mount community along with our fans, employees, and the current students that we have on campus. So thank you all for joining us tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Justine Miller, and I serve as the Assistant AD and SWA at Mount St. Mary's. I've worked there full-time for 6 years, 3 years as a Director of Basketball Operations, and 3 years now in my role working in academics and student-athlete support. I've been in our athletic department 11 years total, getting my start as an undergrad. I'm class of 2013, and I was our student basketball manager for our men's basketball team. And I am so happy to be joined by Tori Krause, head women's soccer coach. We couldn't do this without her. Also joined tonight by Maria Marchesano, our head women's basketball coach, and Lauren Skellchock, our head women's lacrosse coach. So tonight, I'm just gonna let them introduce themselves and talk about their programs, and so you can learn more about what we're doing in Mount Athletics and their leadership along the way. So at this time, I'm gonna turn it over to Tori.
Yeah, hey everyone. So happy all of you could join us tonight. Other thing, if any of our internet drops out or anything, let us know. I'm always terrified that I'm gonna be in the middle of talking and no one's gonna hear what I was saying because my internet, I froze. So, let us know if that happens at all as well. As Justine mentioned, my name's Tori Krause. I'm the head women's soccer coach. Just to kind of go through a little background of myself, as all three of us are gonna do. I grew up in North Carolina. I went to Davidson College where I played soccer. Of course, at the time, it was the only top 10 liberal arts college that also competed at a Division I level. So it was a pretty unique academic and athletic experience that I was able to go through. After college, I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where I received my master's degree in sport administration. While there, I was also the graduate assistant for the soccer program. I did a lot of analytics, breaking down game film. Really big thing was learning how to work the GPS units they just started to use. And really doing anything else they asked me to do at that point. After 2 years, the team created a new position and promoted me to Director of Performance Analysis, where I did a lot of the same kind of work I was doing, but at that time I really honed in on that GPS and a few other analytics programs, because at the time we were really one of the only programs in the country that was using them. I spent a lot of time just kind of weeding through what was beneficial, how to utilize it, what was cool, but not really necessary to what we needed. And then subsequently, I really taught a lot of the other programs there how to use all the GPS units. So, now a lot of them use it as well. So that's kind of what I did while I was there. From there, I was hired here at the Mount as an assistant coach in 2017. In the winter of 2018, the head coach left for a new job. He took a job in the Women's Professional League, and I was hired to fill the position. My first year, to brag on that team, we came in third in the conference, attended the NEC tournament for the first time in 21 years, which is really something we're looking forward to doing again next year. We're bringing a lot of our returners back, maintaining a really core group of our athletes, our back line, most of our scoring power. It's all really coming back, and we're bringing in a really strong freshman class as well. So we're really excited for next season. Just to kind of dive in, a little bit more and kind of talking a little more about, how I really got into coaching and all that. Kind of got to go back to the beginning. So bear with me a little bit on that. But growing up in North Carolina, I was really lucky to have soccer around me all the time. I lived right next to UNC, so I was able to go to all their games. The U.S. national team would play games in Cary all the time. The NCAA finals were in Cary all the time. So I was at everything. Literally my entire life revolved around soccer, truly. And I really loved it so much. I loved it more than practice, more than games, all this stuff. And it really shaped me without me knowing. I'm sure everyone that's ever been involved in sports can agree with just how impactful that it was. And then I went to college, continued developing. I started working with some local clubs there, When my playing career ended, my friends kind of moved on. They were looking at jobs. They, found other ways to go about what they wanted to do. I really realized that I didn't want to do that. I wanted to stay around it forever. And, I knew at that point how much soccer and sports had shaped who I was. And I was kind of starting to see it in a very small way with the club I was working with. And it was amazing to see the impact it had on them. And I really wanted to keep doing that. So when I got to UNC, that's really where I feel like all of the thoughts I'd had about sports, were articulated in, this soccer program. And, the program there, what Anson kind of does, the head coach there, is, he calls it a never-ending ascension. They live on a never-ending ascension, which is actually comes from a Calvin and Hobbes comic. So if you Google it, it's a comic strip, but and it's ingrained in them. And what it is that they believe they should be continually improving and competing and being better. And of course that relates to their on-field identity, right? They're considered to have one of the most, if not the most competitive environments in sports. They've won 22 national championships. Half the national team are Tar Heels. But even more so, they concentrate on how that identity and the work they put on the field translates to what they do off the field and the ascension they have off the field. Because in addition to all those national teams out here, you see so many leaders in every field from that team. What the work they do is incredible. And it just really spoke to how I've always felt about soccer and training and all those things that you have to be to be on a team and be successful, was what allowed me to be successful. And it was kind of the first place where I saw it all together, and I saw all these thoughts that I'd had and just didn't really know how to articulate in one place. So it's kind of always been my philosophy, but with Anson, it kind of allowed me to focus on this idea of winning games, and specifically winning. I think there's a big difference, not to go on a huge tangent, but there's a big difference between the effort and everything it takes to create excellence and mediocrity, right? Like there's a lot to the idea of learning what it takes to win, and all those things, the discipline, the hard work, the teamwork, it all translates into life skills and creating successful young women. And that's really what I like. That's really why I got into coaching. It really kind of ties into this web series. It had a lot to do with why I wanted to start this. And I wanted to bring in Lauren and Maria as this opening to see successful women and hear from successful women, because it's great to give these women that we work with all these skills, but it's just as important to show them this representation and show them different representations, that it's not just one person, they can see it in so many different ways. So like I said, I can literally talk forever, but I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Maria and let her kind of her background and her spiel as well.
Sure. Thanks, Tori. I appreciate it. For those of you that don't know me, again, head coach of the women's basketball team. Heading into my 4th year here. I've been here 3 years. I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, Midwest kid at heart. Played 4 years of basketball at Butler University, 1 year of softball. Went on to play overseas, both basketball and softball, for almost 5 years. My path to the mountain is a little bit different. Growing up, I never wanted to be a coach. And the main reason for that is I just didn't want to have to decide playing time. It's just one of those really, tough parts of this profession. So before I went overseas for my last season, I got an opportunity to work at a small Division III college right outside of Fort Wayne, Manchester College, now Manchester University. And my responsibilities there included assistant softball, assistant basketball, a yoga and Pilates instructor, a wellness coordinator for incoming freshmen, and game day responsibilities for football and wrestling. And I think my total salary for all those duties was like $11,000 a year. So it was crazy, but it was an amazing experience for me. And that's actually kind of where I fell in love with coaching. I fell in love with being on a college campus. I fell in love with being around young people. And I had the opportunity to see so much more to the coaching profession. It wasn't just about playing time. There was more to X's and O's, and I got so much satisfaction in seeing the girls that I was coaching improve. I got a lot of satisfaction for being there for them in some very vulnerable years. And what I found with the whole playing time thing is, when the lights go on, my competitiveness takes over. And at that point, you put the integrity of the team first and you just want to win. So for Manchester, about mid-season, or I guess probably right about beginning or mid basketball season, I found out that there was a small Division II college in Ohio called Urbana University. They had let their coach go like 12 games into the season, and they were going to let their GA finish the season unless they found somebody to replace her. So that's kind of how I got my start into really being a head coach right off the bat. I had only been at Manchester about a year and a half, and had the opportunity to take over at Urbana mid-season. Very crazy situation. Interviewed right before Christmas, took over right after Christmas. Funny story about that. I don't want to get off track too much. My very first head coaching game, we played a team that they had previously lost to by 40 earlier in the season. And I'm kind of making myself look bad here, but it was such a big moment. We won the very first game, and we're in the locker room after the game, and I'm so proud of the girls. I'm so proud, so happy for you guys. You lost to that team by 35-40 earlier in the season. Come back after Christmas, we win. I go, you guys deserve a day off tomorrow. Have a great day. Enjoy your weekend. And they all start looking around, and they're like, Coach, we have a game tomorrow, which was crazy because I just kind of lost in the moment. And it's not normal to play back-to-back in regular season in basketball. So that's just a funny story from Urbana. And somebody asked me that on a podcast the other day, and it's embarrassing, but I was young and dumb then, so I'll blame it on that. But from there, I went to Walsh University, Canton, Ohio, was there 3 years, turned it around pretty quickly. We had back-to-back 21 seasons. And from there, I really wanted to be a Division I head coach, and I had to make a tough decision because I was offered an opportunity to become an assistant at the Division I level, associate head coach. And it was going to be a pay cut, and it was going to be obviously a tough adjustment. But for me, it was all about building my resume. And I made that decision to go to IUPUI, be an associate head coach. Had a great season there, learned a lot from a coach who thinks very differently from me. And I was very excited to learn. I think coaches all win in different ways. And so I was very excited to learn from him. We broke a lot of program records. And honestly, as tough as a decision as it was, it worked out for me because now I'm at the Mount. And that's how I got here. And we'll get more into our season later or in our future. But, we just finished our third year with great kids, great staff. We finished with 20 wins, which is the first time we've had 20 wins in over 20 years. So when I think about the Mount and the coach that I am today, I always go back to a piece of advice that I got from somebody at Manchester when I was leaving midseason to be a head coach for the first time. And he said, listen, just be yourself. If you try and be somebody that you're not, that the kids are going to see through that. So be yourself, treat people right, and just work really, really hard, and good things are going to happen. And that's what I've tried to do. And with my path from, AAU all the way over to playing overseas, I encountered so many coaches along the way, so many different styles. And even though at the time I didn't realize I wanted to be a coach, I was taking little things that I liked and that I didn't like, with me into my career. And so, a lot of people have impacted my path, but I can't even pick one person, other than maybe the college coach. I played for 2 different college coaches. I played for the second one for 3 years. I think she's impacted me a lot. But I take things from so many different coaches. So when it comes to my philosophies and, it's they say it's a good compliment when somebody steals from you. And I've stolen from a lot of great coaches. Looking forward to the upcoming season. We're very excited that we return almost everyone. We only had one senior leave, and she actually didn't play this year. So returning all of our current players and adding 4 freshmen, very, very strong freshman class. We feel like we have some unfinished business, and I know this is, the new normalcy, but we're just hoping that we get to play a full season, with the virus and so many unknowns out there. Looking forward to the future. We feel like, we want to bring back a championship. We feel like we have the team to do it. We're just hoping that we get to play, an entire season and really reach our goal. And the last thing I'll say before I throw it over to Coach Lowe, I feel very blessed and grateful to be here at the Mount. And when I think about my journey to get here, I think about all the people that believed in me and helped me along the way. And I know that I wouldn't be here without all those people. So when Tori asked me to be a part of this, I was excited to jump on board because it's my hope that, one day I can be that person for somebody else. Coach Lowe, it's all you.
Thanks, Maria. Yes, as Maria said, I'm Coach Lowe, Lauren Skellchock. I'm a Maryland native, and I actually grew up in Carroll County, Maryland, and went to Johns Hopkins University. For those of you who know Hopkins, you probably heard Hopkins and lacrosse in the same sentence. So I graduated in 2008, and I played on the U.S. team from 2008 to 2013. So clearly lacrosse was a huge part of my life, along with all other sports, just growing up. I had the opportunity right after Hopkins to actually go and coach in Ohio at the University of Cincinnati with one of my former coaches at Hopkins. She gave me the opportunity to not only coach, but to get my master's there in public health, which was my undergrad at Hopkins. And so I was still in limbo. Do I want to coach? Do I want to pursue a career in public health? I'm clearly still training for the US team. So it was a great opportunity for me to move, to experience a new place, but to explore and figure out, yes, indeed, I wanted to be a coach. And I think I figured that out pretty quickly, even at Hopkins. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I was at UC for 3 years. But then I had the itch and opportunity to move even further across the country. And I coached for 1 year at San Diego State University. It was the first year of their program, so in their inaugural season. So I got a really unique experience of coaching a team full of freshmen. And I learned quickly, again, about patience and about myself, and obviously living across the country, and just about leadership. And then one of my US coaches was also the coach at the time at Stanford. And after that first year out in California, I was offered an assistant coaching position at Stanford University. And I was fortunate enough to coach there for 2 years before I actually got a call from my younger sister, Katie, who was a part-time assistant getting her master's at the Mount. And she said to me, she's like, Lauren, my boss is leaving. Her husband got a new job and they're going to be moving away. We're looking for a new head coach. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you going to finish your master's? Like, what are you going to do? Like, you want me to help you guys look for a new head coach? She's like, no, I want you to be the head coach. Like, let's go. And so on one of my recruiting trips back home, it was actually my sister Katie who toured me around the Mount. And I remember just coming back on campus because my parents had actually taken me there when I was younger, up to the Grotto, to various soccer camps. And then at that time, I was fortunate enough to have conversation with Lynn Robinson and just saw her leadership, her vision. So I knew at some point in my life, I wanted to get back to the East Coast, that I wanted to be a head coach. And this was obviously the perfect opportunity here at the Mount. And clearly I got the opportunity to work with my sister for 3 years, which was really wonderful. And like I said, I knew at a young age that I wanted to be a coach in some capacity. I think being at Hopkins really solidified that for me, especially in the leader that I saw my head coach as. For her, it wasn't just a job. It really wasn't a job. It was something that she found such joy in mentoring us, giving us leadership. And I have stolen this from her in my recruiting philosophy, but my job as a coach is not just wins and losses, clearly to dictate our success, but how good am I at building our young women to be more confident, strong, driven women that have jobs at the end of these 4 years. You know, this isn't just a 4-year commitment for them, for any of our players. This is a lifelong experience. So that really got me into coaching, is just, again, all the impactful women that have led me to this job. But as Maria said, as Tori said, I'm certainly as competitive as they come, but I see the bigger picture in sport, and especially in college sports, is that we have the opportunity to impact our athletes so tremendously. And that truthfully was the reason why I got into coaching. I didn't want my college career to end. I didn't want my US career to end. But at the same time, I knew I could live vicariously through my players and instill these life lessons in them that, again, have made me who I am to this day from that experience. But I think I am certainly passionate about this panel. So I thank Tori and obviously Justine and clearly Maria for just the continued leadership that we have, and Lynn in the Mount. But I'm very passionate about this because I want my players to have the opportunity to be able to connect with leaders within the Mount, whether they're coaches or not, and hopefully with alums and just mentors on campus, off campus to help them. So part of the motivation is clearly selfish for our players' sake, so that they can make connections. But I'm certainly someone who has figured out my coaching philosophy as soon as I got to the Mount. And I think you go from being the young, fun assistant when you are an assistant coach to the head coach, and you're feared in a way, and I didn't know how to adjust to that initially, but I certainly took on a different approach to my coaching philosophy. And I'd say that I'm definitely tough love. The tough part of it is I want my players to be the best player that they can be. I want them to be the best students that they can be. I want them to have, again, I want us to have the best team GPA. I want them to be the best leaders. The love part is that they are my family. And I always tell them that family comes first. My personal family, their personal families. But it's our family when we are together at the Mount and when we were away from each other. That means the most to me. And I look at my players as, in some way, shape, or form, not only just players, but extensions of our family. I think of their families that way. And that's the way I coach too. So, I'm certainly, again, on the field, it's very tough. I have high expectations. I want to win championships, and they know that, and they've certainly bought into that philosophy. But off the field, I want to build relationships. And as I said before, it's not just a 4-year commitment. I hope it's a 40-year commitment. In 2018, my team came to my wedding. I'm 37 weeks pregnant, so they're going to be here for our new baby boy that comes in a couple weeks. I think that they're more excited at times than we are, which is absurd, but it truly is just a wonderful place to be. I say this to everyone, but I am blessed to coach at the Mount, and it's a really unique place to be. We certainly, like Maria said, have some unfinished business, and we'll talk about that a little bit, coming off of not only this past year, but the year previous. And I just finished my 6th year at the Mount. And the year prior to that, in 2019, we actually ended our season with the most wins that we've had in program history. We were able to host, unfortunately lost, the NEC championship game. Our team was tremendously heavy with accolades that year. And so coming into this year, we were really excited to fulfill what we've wanted to do in these past couple years, especially with the change of our culture, and that was win. And to win the championship, to win the NECs. And our ultimate goal is to go to the NCAA tournament every single year. So again, that's been the foundation of our program, especially since I've been there. But the biggest part of it is just the relationship piece, which has made me who I am and the coach that I am.
Awesome. Well, as a Mount administrator, I can certainly say that we are thankful and blessed to have the 3 of you at Mount St. Mary's and leading our young women and our teams. It's definitely easy to see your work ethic and the resiliency you guys have faced while working your way up to get to where you are in this profession. And Lo, you kind of segmented it perfectly as regarding unfinished business. So as a lot of you on this call know, this wasn't a typical year for Mount athletics. Tori was able to have her season in our fall sports competed, and were able to successfully finish their seasons and did a phenomenal job. And then winter came, and our winter sports were underway, and everybody was competing at a high level, doing extremely well. Both basketballs made it to the NEC tournament, which kind of leaves me to Maria, who unfortunately, due to COVID and the pandemic, I mean, talk to us a little bit about that unfinished business that you had in your season with women's basketball, and then moving into ULO with getting ready for conference play and gearing up. You know, it's kind of like March happened and there was an abrupt stop on March 12th, which really kind of left us all feeling a little bit uneasy and not sure how to navigate the future.
Yeah, sure, Justine. I don't think I'll ever forget that day. It's so vivid still. I did an interview just yesterday with somebody from the NEC, and he was talking about how there couldn't have been a better build-up to our semifinal game. There was so much background between us and FDU and us and Robert Morris that, so many people were looking forward to seeing how our conference tournament shook out. And, I just remember that day. I packed clothes for the game, but I just knew in my stomach that it probably wasn't going to happen. I remember I didn't even bring my clothes in. We had a coaches meeting, and Lynn is sitting there trying to update us by the minute of everything that she's hearing, but I'm looking at my phone seeing that the Big Ten just canceled their conference tournament, the SEC, ACC, all these, and I'm like, there's no way we're going to play if these other, Power 5 schools or conferences are canceling their tournaments. So, FDU was actually in our gym, having their shoot around, and I think the NEC officials let them finish, but we found out before they were done with their shoot around that the game was canceled, the tournament was canceled, and it was just one of those things where our kids were just hitting us up every 5 minutes. Coach, are we still going to play? Is the game still on? And, so I think they knew when I said, hey guys, let's meet over at the Arc. I think it was, 1 p.m. meeting. We were supposed to have our shoot around at 2. And it was just very emotional. A lot of tears from the players, from us coaches, from the administrators. It was an exciting year for us. There was a lot of buildup to that. But the fact that there was no closure, we didn't get a chance to give it our all. We didn't get a chance to, throw our best punch, at the reigning champs who we had already beaten, on their court. And, I think the one piece of solitude that we took from it was that we return everyone, and we will get another shot at it next year. And our kids are such great kids, and they understood there were bigger things in the world, but it didn't make it any easier that day. And, we knew that everyone throughout the country was going through the same thing, and it didn't make it any easier, but, just little things like, well, some conferences had already finished their tournament. Why couldn't our conference have been a little bit earlier in the week? Or, just to not have that closure is such a tough thing. But like I said, we're holding on to that, piece of positivity that we do return, everyone. Not all teams will return everyone. So we'll take that into the summer and hopefully put that chip on our shoulder and stay hungry for next year.
Awesome. What about you, Lo? I mean, you guys had a great start to the year in non-conference, and we're gearing up for conference season. So where was your head whenever you got the news that unfortunately we had to send the student athletes home?
Well, clearly, as Maria said, we were in our coaches meetings and just getting the word from Lynn, and it was ever evolving throughout that meeting. So, you didn't know what was going to happen at the end of it. So, to your point, we were in what we break our season up into 2 seasons. That's how we do it for our team and our sport. It's more so the front end of our season is season 1. Season 2 is the back end, which we all know is conference games and ultimately means the most for the outcome and trajectory of us going to NCAA. So we were 6-1. We were really excited heading into the weekend. We were hosting Temple, who had a really great year, and they were just going to be great competitors for us. And then that following week, we were playing Navy. So we had really 2 tough competitions coming up. But again, our first season prepares us always for that second season, which again is NEC. So when we got the news, I was still really optimistic. Unlike Maria's schedule, unfortunately, where everything abruptly ended and the tournament was canceled, I went into my locker room and into my team, and I was like, I'm going to see you in 2 weeks. Like, take your sticks, take your cleats, and we need to make sure that we're prepping every single day. So again, I was looking at it through the lens of this is going to go away. We're going to play our season. We're going to get through our unfinished business and be really to get closure with everything. So it was a little different because then obviously within a couple of days, the news changed, and so did my mentality. I clearly went from a very optimistic outlook to, okay, now we have to go into support mode for our seniors, for our athletes, for our students, which again, I know we're going to touch on shortly here, but it was very heartbreaking. And selfishly, I think we all felt robbed of our season, especially for those seniors who didn't get their senior days and they didn't get that last chance to get those NEC rings, to go to NCAAs. So I think just from the transition of knowing the finality of our season, it was certainly really emotional for our group.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember specifically, I was at the softball. I talked to softball and women's rugby, and we were right there with you, Lo. Wasn't sure what the future looked like. Thought in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we'd come back, be able to finish spring seasons. And as the week had gone on, just that unfortunately wasn't our reality. But you touched on then kind of going into support mode. And Tori, I just want to turn it over to you a little bit. So you had brought in 2 freshmen from high school. I remember spring semester, you and I were talking about their academics and getting them a schedule. And so how did you kind of reframe your spring season where you were prepping them for spring games to going into, COVID mode, we'll call it, where everything is remote and now you have to rework your plans for the spring semester?
Yeah. I mean, so number one, talking to team wise, like Lo and Maria, like we've talked, I can't even imagine having those conversations, because obviously where we were in the spring, and as much as I love our spring season because it's where we actually get to coach and teach and do all of our on and off field, team building and culture, and like so much of what we get to do as coaches is in that time. But I just remember, it's interesting hearing Lauren talk about how she talked to her team, because I remember walking into Waldron and hearing the women's team and the men's teams in their locker room, just like getting ready for a normal team meeting. Like you could tell, there was music, like people, and I just like walked in my office like, oh my gosh, I cannot even imagine like having to walk in that room and like give the news that they're about to. So number one, we were in such a different, space. But like Justine said, we had brought in 2 freshmen. We were able to gray shirt 2 and bring them in a semester early, which was an amazing opportunity for us. So, huge props to them, along with the whole rest of the team for finishing out the year so well. I kind of joked with the 2 of them throughout it that, congratulations on finishing the weirdest semester possibly anyone ever, because it's your first semester freshman year and you went home during a pandemic to do the rest of your work remotely. I don't think there's really anyone else that's going to be able to have that claim to fame. But the way we kind of transitioned, again, we were lucky. We were about to play spring games, but it wasn't championship games. It wasn't regular season games. So, we really let them adjust for probably the first 2 weeks. In theory, we figured we would just give them the time for that original 2 week that we thought everyone was going to be home. But just adjust to being home, adjust to classes, things like that. That was so much more important to me and our staff that, they got those things settled. It was so stressful. No one knew what was going on. No one, then classes were going online. There was just so much in the air. There was soccer, we talk about priorities on our team. Soccer was just not the top priority. So we really did that and just checked in with them and did things like that. And then after that, once we knew we were going to be home, we kind of, started transitioning a little bit. We had a few, fun film projects that we had planned for the spring. So we went ahead and did those. We had Zoom meeting on Zoom meeting and presentations and things, conversations, guest speakers. We've done the whole gamut of different things that we could do. Right. But the kind of cool project that I like sharing, because, I think it's really reflective of our team and our players, is, we had that time to kind of mourn the spring and mourn not being on campus with our friends and doing all these things that we really, really wanted to do. And it stunk. I mean, it sucked for everyone, you know, but after that period, we decided we kind of had to talk about reframing our thoughts and reframing the rest of the spring. And we started a project that I really, really like. And we kind of called it the What You Get to Do project. I'm not, as Maria knows, I am not very good at coming up with names. So clearly that was, you know, how the name I gave this project. But what we asked the players to kind of think about, you know, what are the things that you get to do? What are the things you get to do right now that you would never be able to do because you're at school, you're playing soccer, you're, you know, at the Mount, you're doing all these other things, and, you know, keep a diary, video blog. We even had a player that drew a picture every day of all the things they got to do, you know, read books, spend time with their families, you know, cook different dinners. I mean, there were so many cool things. Learn yoga, all these things. And then we shared them at the end of the normal semester. And I thought it was just such a valuable experience. And, you know, this was the most adverse thing that probably most of us have ever faced, but adversity is so normal. It happens. And I think, you know, helping to reframe that and going through that all together was such a valuable experience that, you know, going along with the project was something we would never have done, you know, had we been on campus this whole spring. We would never have done a project like that. So it was really neat to do that and hear all these amazing things they were doing. I think I got a couple good baking and cooking recipes out of it too, which was pretty neat. So yeah, I mean, so that's kind of what our team did. Obviously, I mean, we didn't have that incredible heartbreak attached to, you know, going home. So we were able to frame it a little bit differently, but I mean, it definitely, I know the three of us have kind of shared in general, but love to hear from Lo and Maria on kind of what you guys have done.
Yeah, and I love the What You Get to Do. And Maria, I've been following your Mount Instagram account, and a lot of your girls are talking about, you know, for them, this is the first time since high school that they've been home for a long period of time. So how do you think they've transitioned from that heartbreak ending to kind of getting them ready to gear up for next season?
Yeah, we kind of went through phases because, you know, at the end of our season, if it was just a normal season, we would have that 2-week buffer where you kind of just decompress. All the adrenaline from the season just comes out. You know, you get back to some normal sleeping hours, you get back to normal human being routines. So for those first 8 to 10 days, you know, we checked in with them, but we didn't really do too much. You know, those were the first days since July that those kids had time to breathe and relax and sleep. So for the first, you know, week and a half, we just kind of let them be, and then obviously checking in with them because it was a difficult time. And then, you know, second or third week, we started, you know, having Zoom meetings and getting more in touch and talking about academics. And I think it was around week 3 or 4 is really when I started getting a lot of texts from the girls, like, are we going to get to come back? Are we going to get to, you know, that was kind of the breaking point of, all right, it's been cool to be with my family for a little bit, but I miss my teammates. I miss being at school. I miss basketball. You know, this sucks. You know, that was kind of the overwhelming feeling. And once we got past that 4 to 5 week mark, it kind of turned a page, and I think they all really started to enjoy the fact that, you know, for once they were able to spend some extended time with their families, you know, get to relax a little bit. I know they were excited. They weren't going through spring workouts because those can be tough. So yeah, it's been, you know, obviously we've had our ups and downs, but we really turned another page here recently because now that school's officially over, we're kind of getting into, okay, now we're gearing up. You know, we don't know yet if we're going to get to have July workouts, but we do know the president has announced that we're going to start in the fall. So we got to get ready to roll. So we've really kind of turned the page to let's get motivated again. Let's put that chip back on our shoulder and get ready to go get this championship this year. And so far they've responded really well to that.
That's awesome. That's great. And Lo, you have, I know, a lot of seniors coming back actually to take advantage of the 5th year that the NCAA was able to give those spring sport athletes. So how did you kind of set things up once you found out that, you know, the reality hit that, hey, you know, my student athletes won't be back on campus until the fall semester? So what kind of steps did you take to help your team finish out the spring semester and then kind of get them into that mindset of starting back up in the fall?
Well, I think, as I alluded to before, you go from like feeling sorry for yourself straight into just straight support mode. You know, as Tori said, lacrosse for us, like for her team, soccer was on the last part of the priority list. It was academically, do you feel comfortable with remote learning? How can we help you with this? What is your schedule like on a day-to-day basis? And I know from you, from Lynn, we had a lot of guidance, just questions to ask our players, like, what is your home life like? Are parents at home? Do you have siblings at home? Do you have responsibilities outside of just school? So it became a lot of one-on-one connections for me personally, just figuring out how can I help them structure their weeks, structure their days without the structure of lacrosse? Because again, sports just by default, every day you get up, you eat breakfast, you go to class, you go to lunch, you go to practice. Like, it's so structured. I was afraid for some of them with their schedules and the amount of time that they'd have. So I certainly went into more support mode right away, strictly just academics, home life, number one. And then it was, I want them to feel as normal as they can being home. We sent them weekly stick work routines. We sent them workouts we knew that they could do at home, encourage them to just have healthy habits. I started sending them nutrition tips, little things just to keep them motivated, just to keep a healthy mindset while not bringing lacrosse into it. And then we set up feedback meetings. Again, just wanted to give them feedback from the season that we had, from the fall that we had, and expectations moving into now what is summer. So it was really important for me just to make them, feel like we cared about them implicitly when they were home, but more so about their academics. And then moving forward, we have so much to look forward to within the fall season. We have so much that we can work for, even if we are limited in these upcoming weeks and months, and staying connected with them, and just, again, reminding them of our goals that we didn't get to finish this year. We have 2 returning seniors, and hopefully 1 transfer coming in, so another 5th year. We will have a roster of 36. We have 12 incoming freshmen who we are really, really excited about. I'm very confident that they're going to be able to complement our team extremely well and make an impact right away. So that's really where our priorities just changed, is looking forward to everything that we have coming into the fall. We just have such a great foundation to build off of, even only playing 7 games this year. So great leadership. We'll have 8 seniors. And again, hopefully those 2 super seniors that we'll have, that's a lot of people that we have to lead the way, and for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on the recruiting trail a little bit with your recruits coming in. So can you just touch a little bit on, I know that since March 12th, you've been communicating with our current student athletes and making sure that they finish the semester strong, but how have the dynamics of recruiting really changed with COVID and not having summer camps and, a dead period essentially being extended through July 31st?
Well, it's certainly been a slow progression in terms of, we knew we weren't going to be able to watch spring games, and then we knew we weren't going to be able to recruit in June, and now it's the totality of the summer. And for us, we are pretty far along with recruiting the current junior class. And for me, I wanted to selfishly wrap those players up, so that, again, they weren't going to have an opportunity to play this summer. And I knew that. But then you have to slow down a little bit. And for some of them, they want to get that extra visit on campus. They want to sit in the classroom. They want to see our team, be with our team one more time before they make that decision. So not just for those 21s, but especially for those 22s, those prospects, it has become a conversation of, we have to be relaxed. We have to be okay with slowing down, because the remaining 21s that need to make their decisions, those 22s and beyond, this is none of their fault. This is not our fault. And we just have to, again, just be the best leaders, because it's not about us. It's not about me as a coach. It's about them making sure that they figure out the best place for them, and when time allows, getting an opportunity to watch them play and get them on campus. But the best advice that I've been giving, that certainly, again, to the club coaches, the high school coaches, the players that we're able to contact, is take your time, because we're with you. And we are very aware that this is going to be a much slower recruiting process than it ever has been. So we have to stay really patient, and they need to just refocus their energies.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tori and Maria, do you guys have similar experience or a little bit different depending on whether it was soccer or basketball with respect to your sports?
I'll go, Tori. For us, this whole past 10 weeks is usually a time period where, we have a lot of on-campus visits. And I think that was the biggest challenge that we tried to attack right away. And so what we did was we kind of came up with a PowerPoint presentation that included videos and statistics and, pictures. And we really tried to recreate what an unofficial visit would look like on campus and try and hit all those hot topics that we usually would go over with the recruit. And while it hasn't been, like Lauren said, it's going to be a slow process. We would have liked to have had more commitments at this point. We did end up getting 2 commitments, and one of them was a kid that we recruited solely through the COVID experience. So we had some success, and somebody asked me actually today, an AAU coach, are you panicking with your 2021 class? And I said, not at all. We're not in a rush. With the way college sports are changing with the transfer portal, there's always going to be that option. And like Lauren said, some of these kids are going to want to go ahead and play their high school season and see what other offers are out there because their summers have been taken away from them. So I'm not the type of coach that likes to pressure kids into commitments. And I think that we get, good response from that. They appreciate that. And, we have 2 really good commitments that we're excited about in the 21 class. And we still have more scholarships to fill, but we're going to be patient and not rush into anything at this point.
Yeah, and just to, really briefly, because I know we have a couple more questions that are so valuable I want to get to, but, what Maria said, I think that's going to be the biggest thing too, is it's going to be such a valuable experience for, players to be able to see what all these different programs are doing with this time and how they're reacting. And, like Maria said, rushing into commitments or not, and vice versa for coaches, right? Like where this gives us an opportunity, what were those players doing? It's a lot more free time, were they using it valuably? I think it's a neat way for both sides to see something unique that, we don't usually get to see.
Awesome. And Lo, we had a question from the audience specifically for you. Not as familiar with lacrosse, but through the AAU circuit and high school, typically basketball and soccer coaches are primarily dominated by male coaches. So have you ever encountered an instance where you have been recruiting a player and they preferred to play for a male coach over a female coach? And if so, what has your reaction been?
I think similar to most sports in general, for females growing up, they are coached by dads, by male figures throughout, their younger years, even through high school. There are a lot of male coaches. I think for our profession in particular, collegiately, we have a tremendous amount of females coaching females. And so I think that we don't encounter that as much as some of the other sports might. I think that, again, for those few programs that do have strong male figures, there are some young females who do want to continue to play for men. But, again, it's not as prevalent in our sport, I would say, as it is in other sports.
Awesome. Thank you. Tori, I'm going to direct this one to you because you talked about the success you had in your first season at the Mount as a head coach. So just what would you say has made you successful here as a head coach at Mount St. Mary's University?
Yeah, I'd have to say just the community there, right? Like what I've valued so much about my experience everywhere I've been has been the community. But here, it's so close knit, it's so supportive. And just even speaking just with Waldron, right? I mean, and Lowe's right next door to me. You know, anything comes up, I mean, I'm knocking on her office like every other second. And if she's not there, then I'm going to Brian, the men's head soccer coach, or Tom, the men's lacrosse coach. I mean, everyone's right there, and they're so willing to help. And my advice off of that is to also be willing to ask for that help. I mean, people at the Mount, and again, that's just Waldron. I mean, that's not even speaking to everyone that's up at the Arc that, I can talk to anytime I need to, but the willingness of everyone to help. And then, my kind of advice side of that too is being willing to ask those questions and go ask for help when things come up, walking down the hallway and asking people. But I think the community that's willing to help here is just, amazing.
Awesome. Maria, I'll pose the same question to you. This was going to be the second year in a row competing in semifinals. So what do you think in your third year has made you so successful as a coach here at the Mount?
I think, I'll give credit to Coach Christian. Jamie gave me this advice, on my interview. I remember asking him, what are some of the challenges that you have here at the Mount? And he said, I don't even think about those. He said, I just focus on the positives. And that's what I've really tried to do. I've tried to focus on all that is good about the Mount. And when I bring a kid on campus, it's such an easy sell. First of all, it's beautiful. The people are great. And what's made us successful is just embracing everything that we have here, taking advantage of the resources that we have, and just making the most of it, I think, along the way.
Awesome. And gosh, I was at that championship game versus Wagner last year. Such a heartbreak way to end, but had a promising start to the year this year, and we're definitely looking forward to your season next year. So what do you think has made you so successful here at the Mount?
I think, again, just going off of what Tori and Maria have said, obviously just the support that we have behind us for our athletes. I just feel really confident, not only in our staff, but just the support system that we have to help us be successful in any way possible. And I truly believe, yes, it all starts with recruiting efforts and continuing to build your programs, build your family. But we have just always had a relentless pursuit for greatness. And I really believe, again, we were very much on our way there, not only in that 2019 season with the season that we had. I was very confident in our abilities this year, and even more so coming into this new season. I think we have the mentality for it, and we have the players to get it done.
Awesome. Last question of the evening. Tori, we'll start with you. What do you think your biggest challenge was becoming a head coach, and what advice would you give to young women who are looking to become a coach in the future or transition from that player to coach role?
Yeah, honestly, I've been really lucky that, I've kind of ascended to this fairly quickly. I'm not gonna lie, and I've been really, really lucky that way. I think the biggest challenge is just having the confidence to do it. There's that old, adage of, a woman's not going to apply for a job because they don't meet, 1 out of 10 criteria. A male's usually going to, has one of the criteria and they're going to apply for the job. I think it's having the confidence. And I think that's again, a big part of why I really wanted to start this was to show successful women and how they've become successful, and encouraging young women to have that confidence to not only go for coaching jobs, but, anything. Especially, every young woman I've worked with has the potential to be so successful, and most of them don't realize it. So, just helping to breed that confidence is huge.
Awesome. Maria, what would be the biggest piece of advice you would give somebody looking to transition from a player to coach, based on the challenges you've faced through your journey?
Making that jump from player to coach is tough. I'll be honest. It's, it's something where, as a coach in your first couple of years, you have that itch that you still want to play, you still want to compete. You got to draw the line and be their coach, and sometimes not be their friend, have tough conversations. And like Tori mentioned, all three of us kind of, got lucky and became head coaches fairly quickly. But it is challenging a lot of times for an assistant coach to sit in an interview and convince, that committee that they're ready to be a head coach. But the biggest advice I would give is just believe in yourself and bet on yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, how can you convince other people to believe in you?
Awesome. I love that. And Lo, what about you? What would you say, where have you learned your leadership styles from, and what would be a piece of advice you would give to a current player of yours who's looking to become a coach?
Well, I certainly feel like I was able to coach under some really great women leaders as an assistant. So that certainly gave me a lot of confidence moving forward in my first years at the Mount. But I would say that, when I was those first couple years a young head coach, it takes time for things to build and become, your vision, your perfect movie. It doesn't happen right away in those first 1, 2, 3 years. I remember how many struggles I felt like we had, more so, on the field, and making sure that they understood, what winning looked like, how to deal with adversity, how to learn from loss. And I think I learned too in those first couple years how to coach my players better, that you can't coach them all the same. They just have such vast backgrounds, and they deal with adversity differently. They deal with yelling differently. So I had to change my coaching to cater to them. And I think that was the biggest thing that I did to help myself, to help my players, was just coach on an individual basis, again, to get the best that I could out of each and every one of them, because they don't all respond the same. And certainly we have the same big picture, the same goals, unified goals. But again, as a group, I had to break them down individually before I could think about those big goals.
I love that. I love working alongside you guys. You're such an inspiration to your student athletes, and it certainly shows as the students come through my office for academic advice and talking about your leadership on the field, in the locker rooms, and even off the field. And you guys are so invested in the student athlete welfare as a whole, and a lot of what you talked about tonight shows that, from their academics to their communities to their home life, and keeping that connection alive. And so I just want to thank you all for being a part of the first episode of Beyond the Whistle, highlighting women leaders. And at this point, I just want to thank Tori for allowing me to moderate this first episode, the inaugural episode of the series. And I will turn it over to her so she can speak a little bit to the vision that she sees for this series moving forward.
Just to reiterate, Justine, thank you to everyone. Thank you, Justine, for stepping in and moderating. Thank you to Maria and Lo for joining. You guys both had amazing insights. I was 100% writing some things off to the side, which is awesome. But I really, when I envisioned this platform, I just kind of thought of it as it'd be such a great chance for the women here at the Mount to be able to share their voices and knowledge. And I knew people would be interested in it, but the support from, everyone on the front end of helping make this work was amazing. And then, the support of everyone attending tonight, and the notes and things and suggestions have just been so amazing. So I just want to also say thank you to, number one, our on-campus community for coming, and all the amazing ideas of how we can better collaborate. We're definitely going to utilize a lot of the ideas and are looking at working on some plans for that. And, thank you to our off-campus community as well for your support. There was after seeing all the feedback, Justine and I have been talking, we're definitely working on a lot of things from this, but one of the things we definitely want to do is kind of creating a database of sorts and start organizing some mentorship programs for our young women. There was such an outpouring of support for that, which is so appreciative. Just again, moving forward, we plan, to keep hosting this series, same general format, but, monthly is what we're kind of looking at it. So, we really hope that you all found some value in it, and that you'll join us again, because I think this is, so valuable, and so much great insight, and I can't wait to keep talking and bringing in more coaches and more people. So yeah, that's kind of all I have to say. Just thank you again. And, hopefully we can all be in person again soon. I miss like seeing and being around everyone, but I mean, until then, again, just thank you guys so much, everyone here.
Awesome, guys. Well, that wraps up episode 1. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening, and I hope to see you all soon.